Stephen A. Smith says Pat McAfee doesn't have to be as polished at ESPN because he's white.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Oh my God.
We got him.
That's now, smart.
It's Black History Month. I'm not really going to go against,
Me too.
Pat is white. Okay. That's a fact. So it is what it is. But Nate Jones says, love Stephen A. Smith, but that's not it. It's because he came from YouTube and ESPN, licensed a successful show with a YouTube format versus hiring Pat to do a traditional ESPN show. If Kai Cenat started a sports show on YouTube and ESPN licensed it, it would be the same thing. Not complicated.
What podcast is this? They're sponsored by Chevy and Twisted Tea.
So I'm glad you noticed that. I'm glad you noticed that because that's gonna.
I noticed that. Come on, man.
That is gonna go into the final conversation. But let's take a little step to the side. Newest.
They act like two legends cannot coexist.
Joy Taylor and Taylor Rooks are partnering to create a new podcast per at Complex. The podcast will be released every Wednesday and promises to feature a wide variety of high-profile special guests. Put them two in the room.
I will be there
with Jaylen Brown. They gonna make it stink.
8 rings in 5 years. Yes.
This is a crazy.
Is that Melo?
Yes,
it is Melo.
Miro about to explain on the pod. Melo, explain this picture. See, the Knicks weren't even an option. All right, dog. That's not the picture.
So I was listening to Joe Budden's podcast today, and as podcasters, I found this to be interesting. They were talking about a podcast that they're friends with that recently got shut down, or not shut down, but they ended the podcast. They released that they're ending their podcast. But this is what he has to say, and I think it's very interesting.
Are you talking about Mandy and
Mandy and Bridget, I think.
Yeah.
Kelly. So they shut down their podcast, but this is what Joe Budden has to say.
I think a lot. It's going to be some more dooms coming soon.
Listen, I'm on record. I'm well documented saying that I think the big boom is over. That whole podcast wave of everybody getting the biggest bag in the world is over, and I think we're going to see quite a few pods, succumb.
I agree. But shout to them. Congrats to their amazing run that they had.
They had a great run.
Yeah, I hit the round of applause.
Yeah, they did. Great things to come.
Yeah, I'm sure the both of them have some big plans ahead of them.
Not with us though. When
are y'all gonna read the? I was looking for. I was about to read it.
Yeah, while y'all find it, listen, man. It's just with all the money being essentially gone, there's only but so many places for people to move and shake, and there's a lot of these companies that are ad companies that are bringing you on to see what your audience can do for that specific model, and if your audience is not helpful to them, right? Because it's not enough to resonate. Like, whatever you got to do to get an audience and resonate with them, that's on you. But that's totally separate from the business of podcasting. So if we hit the button on these ads and 1 and 1 is not equaling 2, then it's going to be tough to sustain. There's a lot of podcasts with business models that don't seem sustainable long term, right? This thing started as a low overhead thing where you could get a mic and a camera and become very profitable. But as it grew, niggas got staff, sets,
they're full productions,
productions,
post
socials, right? And if you are incurring those costs on your own, then I can see how that begins to get difficult. Some of the people that was chasing, right? At some point, you just knew what it was going to be. I mean, I don't want to. If I keep talking, I'm gonna have to talk in code, and I don't want to do that with y'all. But I never wanted to be in that position. Like, I know a lot of people didn't really understand a lot of what I was saying around that Spotify time, but I don't want to be in a position where every 2 to 3 years I'm convincing a staff of my value,
My worth.
and my worth. I don't even trust, depending on the market and where it will be in 3 years, to say that y'all are going to continue to invest in podcasting the way that you've been.
I mean, I think all of this just goes hand in hand, because even the higher brand deals you need higher viewership for. And if you want to build your model off of crowdfunding, you would still need high viewership for. I feel like at the end of the day, the answer is just high viewership and maintaining it. And what I've noticed from a lot of content creators is just, essentially, for lack of a better term, they just pick their poison. Like, ads are either their baseline and how they view, like, their baseline and how much they make, and everything else is just cherry on top. Or, newsflash with us, is kind of the opposite, where the crowdfunding, the clips, the AdSense, even though that's technically ads, you know, all of that is our baseline. Then any brand deals will get is the cherry on top.
He goes on to say that a lot of companies have closed up their podcast department, which we've seen. And even this week, what was that? Complex got bought out and basically laid off everybody over at Complex.
I didn't even know that. Damn. Really?
Oh, you ain't know that?
No, I did not see that.
I didn't see that.
Hold on, let me. It got bought. Was it? Yeah, I don't think somebody bought them. I think BuzzFeed, Vice, Complex, both Complex and Vice got platform. I gotta find this tweet, but yeah, if I'm not mistaken, Complex got bought out, and then they got canned. Like the people that work there got canned.
That is crazy.
I mean, I think that, well, if anybody else has anything to say while I try to find this Complex.
I would just say, genuinely, I mean, I don't necessarily disagree with a lot of stuff. I mean, I necessarily disagree with everything Joe Budden says. I'm a Joe Budden hater, but I mean, he was spitting to the people that I do feel like in the next upcoming years, because everyone just started to get a podcast. A lot of these people that started theirs a year and a half ago, these pandemic podcasts, for real, we might start seeing the end of them. I'm not gonna hold you. I mean, even this was a pandemic podcast. Can't even hold you. I mean, this was a pandemic podcast, but a lot of the podcasts that started around, I mean, we've seen a lot of podcasts get canned over the years. Shout out a lot of those guys. We've seen a lot of people shut down everything or try to pivot it in a total different direction. They just pivoted it out off the court. I was like, damn, all right. Good job. Good game. So I mean, he's not lying. That's all I gotta say about it.
I think there's a difference too when you come out the gate branded. You know what I'm saying? Because I feel like a lot of the podcasts that Joe's talking about, and a lot of the NBA podcasts that y'all see, they come out the gate branded. But it's a little different when you grow the platform first and then the brand deals come, because you already have essentially your proof of purchase, your proof of your business model, that you have the platform and you have the leverage. When all of that leverage goes to the brands first before you build a platform, and now you're relying on, I don't know, the $10,000 that the brand gives you, but your podcast is really only getting 2,000 views per pod, that's when you get fucked up. But if it's the other way around, like the Jeff Teague pod, I think is a perfect example of like, they started building their platform first, and if they ever get bought out, yeah, as long as they maintain ownership, I think they're fine, and they can monetize properly.
BuzzFeed has sold Complex for $108.6 million and will lay off 16% of its remaining staffers in a restructuring to get back on financial track. That's a lot of their shit. And Vice recently went through some of the same stuff. Look, what Biso said to me is the biggest bingo. And we used to talk about it all the time in like the Discord and stuff like that, or offline calls, is that all these podcasts are popping up. Y'all remember when Kim Kardashian had a podcast on Spotify? And y'all remember when Barack
and Michelle?
Yeah, I remember that
on Spotify, and all these people had Spotify's, and I mean a podcast, and all of them started off like Biso said. Now, and mind you, remember we did this. We started at a certain level. Even Sage and Biso started content creating on a certain level, but all of them started off with roadcasters, with FX30, whatever Sony camera that was the most expensive with Shure mics, specifically with big lighting setups and all this stuff. They started out, the money was being pumped into them. And then like Biso said, they started off branded. We just saw a podcast clip where, or not even a clip, a picture where Stephen A was sitting on the Twisted Tea couch with the Chevrolet logo in the corner. And even when we watched that Mellow Pod, there was a
Prize Picks out the gate. I remember when they first came out, dog.
Higher layout.
And so
we were just watching Pat Bev with McDonald's. It was literally McDonald's branded right there. McDonald's everywhere. Yeah.
So and not saying that these guys, these are different categories, but these people start with so many brands, start with so much overhead, and they live off of brand deals. They live off of it. And me and Bezos have talked about this separately too. You got so much overhead, you living off of brand deals, and then one day that brand deal just does not come. One day that money just dried up. You hadn't built the audience yet. You're getting good numbers, you have some decent numbers, but your overhead is crazy. You got a space. Like a actual venue with the lights on and shit like that.
That's what happened with the thing is the podcast that we're talking about, I feel like. Because I think when they first came out, they were like under the Joe Budden Podcast Network, ironically. So, and they already had all the set. I think they were like in the same building. And Mandy and Bridget came from, they didn't have a platform together before they started that platform. And I don't know how the finances worked like prior to them ending, but I feel like it was a case of they were relying on brand deals for a minute. The brand deals dried up, and the AdSense money, what even is that? We don't have a membership set up, so how the fuck do we sustain this thing that needs $5,000 a month to sustain now, plus our living expenses and stuff?
And I want to make it clear for the ones who do listen to this pod and the Joe Budden Podcast. Shouts out to Heist. When Ian was talking about building like a subscription-based service and this is what it's for. This is what we've made some good money over the past couple of months over here.
I'm poor.
I'm gonna keep it
I
high.
signed a check today. I'm like, damn.
Yeah, I did the
We had a
math.
down month.
No, and I thought we did too. And I looked at it and I was like, damn, bro, we getting all this money. Who the fuck is this? And I'm doing taxes too. Man, y'all boys making money over here. I ain't gonna lie. I tell every one of y'all girlfriends. But
Everyone, huh?
here this nigga go. Nonetheless, some of those are based off of sponsorships, but because we have a community and a Discord and a membership based thing, when this sponsorship goes down, we can float until the next one. Yeah, AdSense may go up and down and all this stuff, but as long as we keep having about 1,000 people in that Discord or whatever, and we provide content and all that, that's gonna stay there. But for them, they were ads. So when the AdSense went down in January, the sirens is going off. You sending that email, trying to get them to answer for Prize Picks, and it's a 4-day weekend. This shit getting crazy, and now you want to have big guests on there, and big guests want big things. Big guests want snacks. You know,
I'm glad we built the podcast so that we're not relying on guests at all. I will say that, because imagine like we'd be so worried. Oh shit, we don't have a guest, bro. We're about to get 5K views on our next pod. Like that's bro. I'd be stressing like damn, we ran out, bro. What do you want from us? Shit.
Some of these podcasts don't even do episodes if they don't have guests.
Yeah.
And that's a crazy ass concept.
Yeah.
I've noticed that a lot of these podcasts, or every episode is a new guest. It's based around this is who we have on the day, and I just don't know how. I mean, I know how it's sustainable. I just don't understand how you can rely on that form of content, especially for a podcast. Like, unless if you don't have that that foundation already.
Some people, like when they think of starting a podcast, that is what they think about, Dom, which is crazy to me that's how they think of it. But the idea of even doing an episode without a podcast, I forgot what clip I was watching. It was like, yeah, one of the changes I'm doing for my podcast in 2024 is treating it more like a conversation than a podcast with notes. And I'm like, what What the fuck?
What does that mean?
Yeah, I don't know, but like a podcast to me has always just been motherfuckers having a conversation. I don't know. But some people like they have notes for every single thing they want to talk about. Every single episode has to have a guest, and if it doesn't have a guest, it's not a podcast for real. It's not a real episode. I don't know, bro. It's interesting the way people view content creation and the ad deal shit. I mean, I still give Omar pushback on that, specifically from the short form side of things. Like, I understand what you're saying. Maybe the Prize Picks deal will run out, or the FanDuel deal will run out, but specifically in that niche, because there's been a proven amount of years now that it's worked for people. Like some of the people who manage those talents, like they just know how to get those brand deals every single year as long as they maintain their numbers.
And that's true, but other dynamics come into play, and we're not gonna bog down this part. But I just want to say that it to me it should be complementary. Should be
I think you should just be as well rounded as you can. I think that's ultimately the best answer.
You should
so you don't rely on one thing or the other. But.
Just in case. Oh, and then Parks also said, not along with these companies, Spotify, we're ditching our podcast division. All these other companies ditching their podcast division. Y'all remember them podcast companies? It's not Audio Boom, but damn, some of these podcast companies just don't even exist anymore. Because the money's just shifting from one thing to the next. They came in, they got your money, they got your audience. They cut you that little 60-40 split. You took the 40, it's cool. And then they moved on to the next thing. They got that data, they got those emails, and they moved on to the next thing. And if you sit here every single year, every 2 years, 4 years, 5 years, whatever, chasing the next thing, chasing the next thing, chasing the next thing, you never build you a consistent audience that likes you for you. And people really just don't understand it. Knuckleheads right now, and I love that show, but all of 2024, they have only released reruns.
Damn.
But it's because they're guest reliant. They have first episode was the episode about Darius Miles and Q Rich. Every episode after that was guess. And that's cool. Until, hey man, you busy? Oh, okay, well we'll try to catch you in March. And you done called 20 people, and all of them you catching in March.
Yeah, that's why those podcasts never work. Those podcasts never work live, bro. If you hear how those I mean, when I heard how even peer-to-peer operated, like, it wasn't just one podcast every week with a guest. Like, they might record 3 guest pods in a day and just try to not talk about current topics so they can spread out those podcasts for a span of 3 weeks. So, and I don't know how y'all can live like that for real. That's not consistent enough for me.
I didn't even say much, but I'll just say when it came to Stephen A, I'm not shocked. I'm not shocked by it. If ESPN hypothetically were to meet the woo, I talked about early in this stream that I don't fucking know exactly what the shows are. JT Redick's called out the discourse or the intention of ESPN being wrong, and to a degree, even Stephen A might necessarily agree. And if he doesn't, that's fine. But at the end of the day, he's seen what's going on with Stephen A. Smith show, and I think he's in a situation where, unlike the podcast we're mentioning, he's going to be able to get his shit off. And I wouldn't be surprised if he really made the move. It's a move. That'd obviously probably be the move of the industry for a while. No dick suck. But I wouldn't be surprised by it at all, because unlike the majority of what we've mentioned thus far, Stephen A, he just wants to get his shit off and talk about whatever. Bro's talking about Pokemon now. Like, that don't even make no sense. Like, he's primarily sports for sure. And come on, we know the pivot I made, but Stephen A talking about Pokemon don't make no sense in hell. Bro just want to have fun, bro. So.
I think he's figured out that you're right. People want to hear, like, Stephen, and somebody said that on Twitter, like, yo, Stephen A could never talk about sports again. And if he just talked about whatever, like he was talking about sports, then, oh my God, everybody would just, like, everybody would listen. Like, everybody would just fucking listen. But you know another one, because I actually just heard this one. It was a recent All the Smoke episode. I be watching these basketball pods, listening to them. One of them that really resonated with Stephen A, I bet, is Dan Le Batard. Y'all know Dan Le Batard got kicked off ESPN?
He always brings up Dan Le Batard.
I didn't know.
No, I did not.
So recently, Dan Le Batard's mentor's son got laid off by ESPN, and they didn't tell him. So that between that and a bunch of other stuff, years of other stuff, Dan Le Batard and ESPN split ways. And so now Dan Le Batard is building his own media company. All the Smoke left Showtime, and now they're with Dan Le Batard.
So I didn't know that.
Yeah. Oh, all the Smoke left Showtime. They've maintained they have their own YouTube channel and all that stuff now, so they don't have to do this starting over. And that's another thing that Joe Budden talked about is like, you know, all y'all just continuously starting over with your new, we got a new channel. Oh, we're over here now. We're over here now. And you keep doing that time and time again. And sometimes it works for some people. Like, I haven't looked at the numbers, but I'm pretty sure Kenny and them have been able to, you know, just straight up say, oh, well, you know,
that's also the first time they've done it. So
yeah. But and some people have done it 6 times over the past couple of years. But sometimes it don't work for some people. But nonetheless, so they're over there, and Dan Le Batard is like, yeah, one regret that I wish that I had was that I just didn't want to be so reliant on the machine for like X amount of years. I never thought to do what Pat McAfee did. I never thought to do what Shannon Sharpe and Stephen A. Smith are doing now. And that's building a platform that isn't reliant on ESPN, because that day might come. So
yeah, that's what happened to a lot of those shows on ESPN.
Hope everybody finds work.
They were branded by ESPN. ESPN had all them layoffs. Bro, what the fuck do I do, bro? Like, y'all were paying me a salary to host this podcast. I'm about to start over it. That's what I think that's what happened with I'm blanking on his name right now.
Dog, yeah, all of the ESPN analysts, when me and when me and Damo were in high school, literally all of them were gone.
Yeah, all them niggas are done. They're all gone.
I don't know where Kari at. Max got hold. I know I'm like a wee bit younger, but like
Around the Horn dudes. Are they?
Yeah, Around the Horns cook.
All of them people.
Damn, bro. Yeah. Hey. Look. End of the day, I know this ain't the sexiest topic for a lot of chatters. End of the day, I think we can all agree though. I hope them niggas alright, man. I don't want to see people just out there no job. That's tough.
That is tough. I just wanted to say, because of the tweet or whatever, the quotes he talking about Stephen A. talking about him being black and Pat being white, just to speak on that too. Yeah, I'm not gonna hold you. That nigga's bugging. I'm not that just in that instant, he's bugging. That quote tweet was spot on. Pat had a brand, he had to establish the way he did his show. And I feel like they gave you the liberty, because what is the Stephen A. Smith show on? Is that also through ESPN?
Independent.
That's independent. That's not on ESPN.
No.
Keep doing the Stephen A. Smith show, and I promise you, once he is profitable enough, they'll want you to do it on ESPN. Then you can talk about Pokemon and Ratatouilles all you want, man. I mean, like, you can do all the things you want to do. That's just the brand he built. I don't think it's a black or white thing. That's crazy.
Yeah. I'm looking at some of these names now, man. It's crazy out there.